Open source software has made a huge impact in today's society, allowing for everyday developers to contribute to groundbreaking technologies within a driven community. Have you ever wanted to add your code to the mix? Well, today I'm going to walk through open sourcing one of my Sparcpoint projects called Sparcpoint.Media. It is a personal project that has helped me archive my video collection. We will create a new repository with GitHub, then focus on separating out the code from my mainline project, and then finally we're going to add some documentation. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Let's jump right in. So the first thing I want to do when we want to open source is really want to get a repository going. I already have code written, and so I'll go through that here in a little bit. But first, let's actually get a repository built because that's really the front lines for our open source. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to repositories. This is one way to do it. You can also go up here and you can click new repository. I'm not importing one because actually I need to separate it from a separate repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to name this basically the core of the library is called Sparcpoint.Media. So I'm going to call it that. I'm going to put a brief description here, and we're going to say a media-based library and CLI for archiving various file formats like DVD, video, Blu-ray, and music. Okay. I want it to be public. There's no reason not to make it public now. Nobody's going to go see it right away. I mean, within the half hour we do this, it's not going to matter. So we're going to go ahead and make it public. I'm going to add a README file. We're going to obviously change this. I'm going to add a git ignore, and we're going to choose a template. The template I use, of course, is Visual Studio because I use Visual Studio. But if you're using something else, you'll like, there's actually a lot of them in here. You'll see there's Android, you'll see C, C++, CUDA. They have all kinds of different ones that could be tailored to your code base. Pick whichever one works for you. I'm a C# developer, so Visual Studio makes the most sense. And finally, choose a license. This is actually very important. I would recommend you spend some time understanding the different licensing schemes. If you're open sourcing your software and it's going to be for everybody and you don't care what's going to be done with it, so to speak, MIT seems like one of the better options, right? But you can also click this and it'll take you to some of the information on choosing the right license. And you can go to choose a license and you'll see here, how do I choose one? I need to work in a community. I want it to be simple, permissive. I care about sharing improvements, right? There's a lot of different ones. MIT license, for instance, what I'm going to choose is a short and to the point. It lets people do almost anything they want with your project, like making and distributing closed source versions. I'm okay with this. For this project, I'm perfectly fine with it. So we're going to choose MIT. It does say this down at the bottom, the main branch is the default branch. I guess I'm so used to master that the change is definitely a little odd to me, but I think for now it doesn't matter. I don't really think it matters, but it's something you can change before when you're creating a new repository. We'll leave it a main. That's becoming a new standard now. I understand why. So we'll go ahead and create the repository. Great. Now you'll see here, there's not a whole lot here, right? We don't even have any code in here yet. So let's actually go to the code. I'm going to go ahead and copy this while we're here. So we're going to go copy this, and we'll go into Visual Studio. So here's the code I'm ripping away. No pun intended because there's a ripper in here. But this is my solution, Sparcpoint.Media.Ripper. Basically, this is the primary solution for the CLI tool. However, I do have libraries. I have media. I have some extensions for logging. I actually have a Ripper library, which is more of an abstract library. And then I have the actual Ripper library for Make MKV that does some video archive ripping. So this is pretty much what I want to pull out into a separate repository. Right now I work in a mono repo for a lot of this code so I can share code easily, but this is a very different project from the other stuff that I have in this mono repo. There's really not a good reason to keep it there. So first thing I'm going to do is I did some work on this earlier, so I am going to commit my changes first and foremost. So I removed notifications previously from. Okay, we'll go ahead and commit these changes. I'm gonna go ahead and push these up. Go ahead and get them where they need to be. So this is my mainline Sparcpoint mono repo. We're pulling it out of there. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna go look at my file structure. So this is my current repository. I have build, docs, engineering, source. If I go into source, you'll see I have libraries and products. I have some internal stuff too. This is just some stuff I do for me personally. It actually really has no bearing on most of the stuff in here. So, but I have libraries, and here's all my different libraries. And then I go under products, and here's my different products. So we have multiple things we need to switch out and change. But in order for this to work well, it's best if I keep uh, the actual hierarchy of the folders in place. So the structure of the folders is important. So source and products and source and libraries should stay in order so I don't screw up the actual solution files itself. So now that I have that, let's go back into here. I'm going to close this solution, and let's just go ahead and clone the repository that we created. So I'm going to clone. I have my default path repos. So we'll hit clone here, and there we go. I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to open it in File Explorer to make it easy. So now this is what we want to put our folder into. So let's go back to what we had before. So let's just go ahead and separate it out. I won't go into a lot of details here. This is pretty straightforward stuff. Basically just copy the folders over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my source folder. Go ahead and create my libraries folder. And my products folder. Perfect. Source, libraries. And we are literally going to just cut these out. Beautiful. Come back. I'm going to do the exact same thing for my products. Perfect. So at this point, I should have everything. So I'm going back to my Sparcpoint. I don't have anything under engineering. I don't have anything under docs or build specific to media. In my library, I have no more Sparcpoint.Media. I tend to namespace my things so that they all really stick together. So you see inventory here, you'll see Excel, you'll see cigars, you see very different things in here. So I namespace these in a way so I can easily separate them out if I need to one day. And sure enough, here we are. And same thing here. Okay, so it looks like we're separated out. However, we want to confirm that what we did didn't just mess everything up. So why don't we try opening Ripper up? Okay, so everything kind of came up. I didn't have any issues with it looks like with dependencies, or I guess we should probably take a look and verify. One easy way to do this would be probably just try to build. Build succeeded. That's good news. I'm going to look in my dependencies just in case. I only have packages, which is good. So if I have project references or very specific types of, I don't know, not packages, but like DLLs or something like that, I need to make sure that I don't have any references, because it may still work on your computer, but not when it gets uploaded. And that'll be because people will need a local reference, which we don't want to do. So it looks like packages, projects look fine. It's media. They should only be dependent on each other, and that's really the point here. It's good. Frameworks, I'm fine with that. Let's look at the test. We're good. And we're good. Okay. So I am happy with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to commit this, and we're going to say initial upload of repository. I'm going to put copy from monorepo in here so that way I know that, and I'll just put Sparcpoint. That way I know which monorepo it came from. That way if I ever want to go look at the history, because there was a history behind this, I can. And it's under the main branch. For now, that's fine. Great. Okay, I'm happy with this. So the next question, and you know what I did not do, which I should have done, I really probably should have checked. Should have really checked to make sure that this commit didn't have DLLs and that it was really all code files. Let's just take a quick look here. Make sure it's all code files. And it is. So there's no DLLs on accident. The get ignore should have handled that, and it does. But I want to make sure so that it didn't mess up there. Okay, so now we're good. The next thing I like to do is I would like to add the README file to this so that I can edit it. So let's go ahead and get that README file done. So let's add an existing item. We're going to go up to our source, which is here, and let's open up a README. All right, so you can see right here, the README comes in with basically what we have is a description. And this is fine, but we'll leave that alone because it's not a bad description. I'm gonna get rid of the dot here, make it a little more pointed. But I like to do a couple things. This is a pretty common standard you'll see in GitHub repositories. Is you'll have basically three sections. You'll have your introduction, which is this first part. Then you'll have installation, and then finally you'll typically have. I think it's usually double header here, and then finally you'll have usage. So this is interesting because I have my ripper.cli. How do you install it? Well, I don't have a NuGet package for it or any of these things yet. So it'll be just a very basic paragraph. Clone repository and build Sparcpoint.Media.ripper.cli. We'll make it real simple, but I'm going to do something in the future for another video where I actually turn this into a PowerShell script, which or a PowerShell module, and I'll have a Sparcpoint.Media PowerShell module that can then be used anywhere. As long as you have make mkv installed or whichever provider you're going to use, it'll just work. So that'll be the goal there. We'll see how that works in the future, but for now, this is what you got to do. So we'll say clone and build. We'll just bolt it up. Okay. Yeah, you should put more in here, and I'll show you an example of one I did for Sparcpoint.notification to give you a little bit more of a use case there. So then we got something like this. Okay, so now I have Ripper CLI. How about usage? All right. So let's look at first of all how this actually works. We'll go to properties. I actually do not use the default naming convention. My assembly name is Ripper. That's simple. Of course, I could do something like sp-ripper if I wanted to, which is probably not a bad thing. I'm trying to get into a habit of making putting prefixes in my assembly names to make it a little bit easier to distinguish from maybe other software that might be called Ripper. But for now, it's called Ripper, and I do use this fairly often. So what I'll do is I will pull an example. It's pretty straightforward. So to use, we're going to show the options. So let's go look at the options for auto rip. So here's all the options. I'm going to make this real simple by just basically running it one time. So I'm going to pull up PowerShell here. Hit Ripper. Hey, look at that. So it gives us all the options here. And in fact, let's just do Ripper-help. That way we don't get all the extra stuff. And here it is. Ripper 1.0, here's all the information. So why don't we just copy and paste that? That seems like an easy way to approach this. First, we're going to say, oops, we'll use a bash code type, and we'll just put that in there. And one thing I don't like about this is it did not show the default, and I thought it did. Yeah, it does not show the usage in this, so I must be using a different tool. That's okay. So we'll say options, what we'll do here, and there you go. So, and these are the options you have. And so what we'll do here is we'll then say, options, and we'll make it real simple. So E is exe. It will default, of course, to mkv if you have it. The mode required, there's a lot of different modes. We're going to put some information about that here in a minute. We have title to use during naming, the season if you are using that. Default is 0, need a season number for the current RIP session. If you're using TV, you get disk numbers if you have a specific disk number to start at, episode you want to start at, minimum length, maximum length, output. Output is the folder it's going to be ripped to. I also allow for notifications. So I mentioned earlier about, I'm going to show you some stuff on notifications. Well, I actually implemented notifications here, so when it was done ripping, it would just text me. So my mobile provider, and Google for the sake of actually sending the emails out. Then help and version. So let's that looks good to me. What we're going to do now, and one thing I am going to change is I'm going to push these together a little bit. Let's see how that looks better. Why waste the room if you don't have to? Maybe what we'll do is we'll do this, do it like this, output separate, and I want to just put these in a different order. So exe, mode, title, output, this number, episode, max length, min length. There we go. That feels like a little bit better of a grouping of parameters. So now we also have some, we have different types of modes. So why don't we pull out those modes? So we have these four plus a custom mode. So let's look at the worker here. Here they are. Here's the modes. We have standard. It's basically going to be anything that's 30 seconds and on. And this is the mode, right? So let's just make this simple. We're just going to copy these out for now, but I'm going to change the format when we get to the README. So let's talk about modes, all right? So we'll say mode. All right. And of course, we'll get rid of all this. Okay, so we have that, and we'll just do an example. So why don't we just do example, and we'll say bash. There you go. So now I've created my README. README's all done. I've added some basic things to it. We have our installation, which is not much now. We have our usage. We have our mode information just to help out with having people understand how that works. And we have an example. Not the best README, but it's enough to kind of get us started. I'm now going to commit this. Added. All right. Actually, before I commit that, let me look at my description again. Let's put a note in here. We're going to say note currently only supports make MKV, and it might be good to provide a link. So why don't we do that? mkv.com. Make sure that goes where I think it will. It does. Why don't we just do this? Download. And let's make this we'll say one. Download MKV. We'll do okay. Install. We'll just do it all in one. Install MKV. Then we're going to say clone repository. Build. We'll just build here. There you go. Installation. Real simple. Okay, I forgot something, so I'm glad we went back and looked. So that's a little bit better. We have our little note here about supporting MKV. I don't think there's much more we need. So let's commit that. Yeah, save everything. And let's push up our work. So push it up. We'll go back to our repository. It's blank because we need to refresh it. And there we go. A media-based library in CLI. Blu-ray music. Okay, currently only supports make MKV. We need to download and install it. Does that go where I think it should? Hey, it does. Perfect. Clone repository, build. Here's some usage, mode, and then some examples. And there you have it. We now have an open source project. It is public, as it says right here. And I promised we'd go look at notifications, so let's go take a look at that. Repositories, notification. You can see here I have a package manager console, install package Sparcpoint.Notification. Here you can also install it via the .NET Core CLI. Here's some usage. You can actually see a real world usage example of using a notifier. Right, notifier, new email, SMS notification. You pass in your information, or you can use Google if you wanted to, and then you can send this asynchronously. So there you have it. We have created now, we'll go back all the way to our repository we just created. We have now open sourced my Sparcpoint.Media, and it is officially on GitHub for people to fork, edit, download, use, whatever. Hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time.